Hey everyone, welcome to Matt is Reading. Today we're going to be talking about book one of the Stormlight Archives, Way of Kings. This is spoiler talk, so I'm going to be talking about things spoiler through the first book, and I'm not going to spoil anything further on. I've started reading the second one, I'm through part one of that, but this video is just about what happened in the first book and my thoughts on the first book. There was so much to like about this book. I know everybody says that Stormlight Archives are Brandon Sanderson at his best, but this book was 1,000 pages long. It was 1,007 pages. And even though it was very long, the pacing still felt quick, but I can see why Brandon Sanderson tells his readers. I've actually seen him post a YouTube video and articles about where to start whenever you're in the Cosmere, and he talks about starting with Mistborn, and I can totally get that because you don't really even start to learn what the magic system is until the last part of the book. And then book two, and I said I wasn't going to spoil anything, but this isn't much of a spoiler. Book two starts to get into, well, how does the magic system actually start working? There's scenes in Mistborn where Vin is learning, each of the elemental powers that she has as a Mistborn. That happens like 100 pages in. In this series, that's happening like 1,300 pages in. So it's a little slow from the magic system building. Very character heavy first book. In a book this big, you have some arcs that start and end pretty early, and there's also arcs that start at the beginning of the book and end towards the end of the book. And then there's also arcs that have started that I don't think the payoff's going to come until much further in the series. Some of the interludes in particular and the epigraphs at the beginning of the chapters that are right before the chapter starts, those little pieces of text, I don't think we're going to get payoff for those for a while. So I feel like I'm going to have to take notes on those as I'm going through and reading the additional books. This book being very character heavy, and Sanderson does a great job at writing characters. I love so many of the characters in this book. The type of fantasy books that I really like, though, are a ton of world building and a growing of the magic system. A lot of people think Wheel of Time is slow. I love that series because the world building was so deep and vast. You really felt like you were in a different world. This one was character heavy. It spent so much time just in the Shattered Plains. The map at the beginning of the book of Roshar seems very big, and this book was just a very small piece of what that world is. So I am looking forward to getting more into that in the future books. But this book being a baseline for who the characters are, who the main characters are, and what you get to know about them, I thought it was great. So let's kind of get into that. Some of the characters that I liked. Bridge 4, obviously, I'm just going to group all the characters that are a part of Bridge 4 into one group. It was a great arc. It was very predictable arc, though. I mean, when Kaladin came in and you started figuring out that all the bridgemen were very tortured people from their past. They wouldn't even make eye contact with one another. They didn't even use their names with one another. I think pretty early on you knew what was going to happen. Kaladin was going to bring them together. Sanderson still did a great job writing it. And my only problem with Bridge 4 was that I felt like the arc was ready to go. It was kind of drawn out for the last part of the book, and you don't really get that payoff until the Sanderlanche at the end of the book when Sadie's betrays Dalinar and Bridge 4 comes to save the day. I felt like the characters from that book were ready to go probably about halfway through. But the payoff was great. I love that scene at the end. Bridge 4 is going to be a force to be reckoned with moving on into the rest of the books. One of the things I didn't like about Bridge 4 was Kaladin in particular. Great character, but and one of the things I didn't realize going into this book is how flashback driven it is. And kind of getting into the second book, I'm seeing that each book is going to have flashbacks of a specific character. Book 1 focuses on Kaladin, and the flashbacks were great. I love to get to know Kaladin as a young child all the way through adolescence, and then where he is today as a man. You can definitely see how his past has made him into who he is today. My only problem was maybe this could have been a 700-page book. Maybe this could have been a little bit of a shorter book if it wasn't so much, the character arc. Kaladin had like 5 different arcs, and some of the arcs that he had, some of the stories from when he was younger, I feel like they were a little bit drawn out. And maybe I'll come back later and appreciate them more as I get further into the series and see maybe some of these other characters pop back up. But in the meantime, through book 1, I was kind of ready to move on from Kaladin. I was ready to move on into some other characters that I liked, like Adolin and Shallan, Jasnah. I really want to get to know more about them. And this was a very Kaladin heavy book, which again, I didn't mind. Kaladin's a great character. I'm just kind of hoping in the books moving forward that it's a little less Kaladin and a little more of some of the other characters that I really liked. Now I'm going to get into, I'm just going to call them the Lighteye High Princes and group them together as one. So this will be your Sadies, your, just High Princes in general, Adolin, just great characters. The thing that I thought was really cool is that the transitioning between chapters of the Bridgemen in Bridge 4 and then the High Princes, while in the world there is a huge difference on who they are in terms of the social structure, the chapters felt very relatable. When you're reading about the High Princes, you're like, oh, they're just like anyone else. When you're reading about Bridge 4, you're like, these guys are in some ways better characters, or better people, I should say, than the Lighteyes. That just becomes very clear. So really good stuff from the High Princes. I am loving Dalinar, just the whole idea of him having these visions through the high storms, and just him as a leader in general, especially by the end of the first book, the way he accepts Kaladin in, gives Kaladin a place of political power in the system, the political system, the war, I think he becomes a commander or a captain at the end. Anyway, for somebody who's a brown eyes and not a light eyes, that was something that was never heard of. And meanwhile, Kaladin or Dalinar does it, and I just like his character for that. Sadies as well, he's portrayed as he's a great villain in this book, right? Like I, at one point, very much trusted Sadies in the same way that Dalinar did. Maybe I just trust Dalinar and his opinions on things too much, but whenever Adolin was saying Sadies is going to betray us, everybody knows that he will, and Dalinar's like, no, I don't think that he will. He convinced me. And I don't know if he convinced you or not, but that led to being even more surprised whenever he actually does. So I'm glad I fell for it because it made the ending of the book even better for me. And now I'm going to move on to Jasnah and Shallan. I think these are my favorite 2 characters. And the reason why I say that is I think so much of the magic system, so much of the religion in that world, the religions that are happening in that world are coming through Jasnah and Shallan, and I just want more of it. I want more Jasnah. I want more Shallan. Jasnah in this book keeps very much to herself the entire time, which totally makes sense. She feels like she is taking on the desolation that is coming all by herself. She eventually brings in Shallan. It took a long time for Shallan to get there. Meanwhile, Shallan's trying to steal her soulcaster, and Shallan is not in the best motives at the beginning of the book, but then really buys in at the end of like, she wants to be a part of what Jasnah is doing. Very much looking forward to reading more about who the Voidbringers are and the Heralds and the Knights Radiant. We don't know a lot of what has happened in the past to lead to where we are now. All that we know is at the beginning of the book, in the prologue, Gavilar is killed by the white assassin who is Seth, or Zeth, however you say his name. So I loved some of the characters that surrounded Jasnah and Shallan. King Tara Vanagan, he was a great character. Even at the beginning, when Jasnah saved his granddaughter, you're kind of thinking, oh, that was like in the book for Jasnah to kind of reveal her character. Really, though, towards the end, whenever you find out, right at the end of the book, whenever King Tara Vanagan is using people, and it's kind of creepy and spooky how he's doing this, but he's using people as they're dying and having visions about the desolation and writing it down. So what I think is kind of cool about that is Tara Vanagan is portrayed as this innocent character at the beginning. At the end of the book, you find out he's doing some pretty weird, spooky, maybe even evil stuff. But then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, maybe he just knows that the desolation is happening as well. And this is him trying to save the world from it, as Jasnah is. So you're kind of seeing that many people in different parts of the world must be knowing that something big is about to happen. And they're trying to either prevent it or just even understand it. Nobody's working together yet. And I think that that's interesting. Humanity is not working together. They're all kind of working on their own, trying to figure out what's going on. So I'm going to be interested to see what how that plays out by the end of the book. So that's all the characters I want to talk about. One of the things, like literary style, I guess, the epigraphs. I didn't even realize how important those were towards the end of the book when you find out that Tara Vanagan is getting the people's dying words that they're talking about the desolation. And then within there's a letter that's being written, and it's a letter between the author, not even known. He's writing about Rays and Lighteye. From what I understood reading through this, I had to go back and read it after just the epigraphs. The author's being chased, and the 17th shard is also mentioned. We don't know what the 17th shard is. We don't know how many there are. We don't know if the 17th is the last order, if it's 100 of them. Who knows? Maybe we do. Maybe I just didn't pick that up, but I don't know that yet. All that I know is that the authors request that they call off whatever they are planning. And I am excited. This is one of those arcs that I was talking about at the beginning of the video, where I think that there's going to be payoff of that down the road. And just wanted to put a note in that now of who are these people? Race, Lighteye, are they the heralds? Are they, I just don't know yet. And I'm very interested to find out. Great quotes in this book as well. I'm going to read one, and I'm going to try to pull out like a best quote of the book and maybe read it at the end before I get into my predictions right at the end of this video. So the best quote: "And so, does the destination matter, or is it just the path we take? I declare that no accomplishment of substance is nearly as great as the road used to achieve it. We are not creatures of destinations. It is the journey that shapes us. Our callous feet, our backs strong from carrying the weight of our travels, our eyes open with fresh delight of experience lived. In the end, I must proclaim that no good can be achieved of false means. From the substance of our existence is not in the achievement, but in the method." This quote was from The Way of Kings, which is a book in the Way of Kings. Pretty meta, but I love the quote nonetheless. So a couple predictions moving into the next book, or, the rest of the series. I think Sadie's is going to be involved again. We have not heard the last of Sadie's, and really I think that he's going to come around and end up being a helpful character to Dalinar. Obviously there's going to be a struggle of, does Dalinar trust Sadie's again after what he did to him? But I think that Sadie's is going to turn villain into good, because I think that the real villains, Odium is mentioned as this spooky person or god that is maybe causing the desolation or going to be a part of it. Anyway, I think that we have what are seemingly bad people now that are going to have to turn to the good side, because I don't think that Sadie's is working with Odium. I think that Sadie's is just dumb and only concerned about himself. And I think part of his arc might be that he turns and comes back around. Kaladin, I think, is really going to struggle with this. I think Kaladin's struggle with Lighteye is going to be, I'm imagining it that it's going to be, I don't know if Sanderson will overdo it, but he definitely doesn't have a trust for Lighteye, and rightfully so. Like, he has a really hard past of being tortured, essentially put into slavery by the Lighteye. So I think that he's really going to struggle with this, but I want to eventually see everybody working together against the desolation and Odium. I'm also predicting, and I don't think this is much of a prediction, but Jasnah, I think she's going to have a great character arc of being a person of power, political power, because Dalinar really struggles with this, but I think that that's going to end up being Jasnah's strength. And I think she's going to kind of be leading everyone politically moving forward, her and her mom, Navani. Which, quick pause on that, like Sanderson, he does a fantastic job of writing these female characters. Like they are across all of his books. Mistborn, like Vin is one of my favorite powerful women that you get to read about in these fantasy series. Jasnah, Shallan, Navani, I think that they're all great characters, and I'm really excited to see their arcs moving forward. So that's my thoughts on the Way of Kings. Planning another video very soon, might maybe even be right after this one, on Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson, which I also recently finished. And moving forward for Words of Radiance, I plan on doing a video for each part. I finished part 1. I'm going to do a video on part 1. I'm going to do one on part 2, and so on. And then maybe do just a recap of my thoughts on the book. I think it's going to help me out. It was tough to talk about a book that's 1,000 pages long and condense it into a video that is actually a length that anybody would want to actually listen to it. So I think splitting them up a little bit is going to help me process my thoughts and then allow you to join in on the discussion as I'm reading through the book. So look out for those 2 videos soon. That's it for this one. This is Matt is Reading, and you can follow me on Peloton at Matt is Sweaty. Have a good one. See ya.